Evolution of brain and body. Our project involved setting a robot in a virtual environment and giving it a goal of traveling the biggest possible distance in that environment, using the most efficient method of transportation it could find during the limited time span it was given. So it is the evolution of mind. And using the most efficient body shape it could find, the evolution of body. The evolution of mind. So at first, the robot had the most random and clumsy transportation algorithm. Over the time, as it tried out different transportation paths and movement algorithms, it became gradually better at traveling. From the initial clumsy state of mind, the default clumsy transportation algorithm, the robot introduced to it the variations to those movements, i.e., it modified starting variables used in its code which influence its movement, and compared the distance from the starting position after executing those particular movements to the same distance before introducing the variation. If the new varied movement placed it even slightly farther from its starting position, or placed it into the same spot as previously but in a shorter time span, then that new varied movement was set as default, because, well, this way it could gradually improve its algorithms. Then, after the first improvements, rinse and repeat, as they said. The above algorithm was executed over and over and over again until the allotted time span for improvements passed, which was basically how much Raoul had time to let the robot keep improving itself. So, and after that time span of evolving, the evolution algorithm most likely increased the distance traveled by the robot. As for the evolution of body, it was similar as with mind. At first, a randomly chosen body composition was set for the robot, and then minor gradual changes are introduced and subsequently compared to each other in terms of the speed and reach of the robot's movement while it had this particular body shape. Okay, that's it for the introduction.
Okay,
Now,
sorry. In this part of the presentation, I will try to explain all the simulations, the results, and the conclusions we got from the simulations we did. So the objective of our work, as Jacob said, was to compare the evolution of the brain with simultaneous evolution of the brain and the body. And to do this, what we used is a software known as RoboGen that allows us to simulate the evolution of the brain and the evolution of the body and the brain. To do this, what we did was first to set a free environment like this in the picture with some limits, and we set a racing scenario. This means that we set the robot in a start position and then let the robot move, and the bigger the distance the robot covers, the better the solution in a limited time. This software uses a tournament selection algorithm for the algorithm evolution, and for the simulation we used 10 individuals and 200 iterations. That is a quite big number. So we started working with brain evolution. For this, we used the file structure that RoboGen gave us. That is this one, and these are some solutions we got from the simulation. Can you see the videos? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, fine. So at first, the first generation was pretty bad. It only rotates over itself, so it has a very bad control. If we go a little bit further, some generation further, we see how also the webs rotates faster, still don't coordinate. So it just rotates rotate over itself. But if we go to generation 80, we see how now the two legs are coordinated and moves forward, allowing the robot to cover a great distance. In the last generations, we see how the control has developed in a way that now the robot structure don't touch the ground. So the frictional forces that can be there are eliminated, and that makes the robot go farther, move faster in less time, and therefore it's a better solution. So now what we did was to test, simulate the brain and body evolution. To do this, we also used the file structure that RoboGen gave us, that was this one, and the parameters we use for the simulation are just the same as the one used in the brain simulation, but we also have to add some additional parameters for this kind of simulation, like number of initial parts and brain probabilities. So as we see, the first generation is quite bad. It does nothing. The control is pretty bad. It has one motor here, and the structure is quite random, so it has a very low fitness. But if we move to the generation 50, we see now how the structure has changed a lot, and now the control allows the robot to move, not in a very optimal way, but allow it to move. What we found it also interesting in this iteration was this web, because this web never touched the ground in all the simulation. So at this point, we asked ourselves: is this web there for evolutionary reasons, or is just there for maybe a residual of a random past iteration? So So what we did was just to do another simulation, but with a robot without the web. This robot has the model of the web, but what we did to eliminate the web was to assign to the web a mass of 0. So as it never touches the ground, it's the same that there is no web, since we eliminated the inertial effect. That is the only effect that can influence this robot, the web. So we measure the distance that the robot covered, and we see that the distance that the robot covered without the web were in fact lower than the one covered with the web. So we conclude that this web was there for evolutionary reason. And what is more interesting is that a few generations later, just 5, then the web is used for another completely task that make the fitness go higher. And if we go to the last generations, we see how the fitness now has greatly increased, and how the robot has completely almost changed its structure. And in the last generation, we see how the robot has developed a quite optimal way to move, since this web and these wheels are used as back wheels to move the robot, as we see here, while this arm grabs the ground and pushes the robot forward. Doing this quite optimal solution helps the robot go faster. So once we finished the simulation, we asked ourselves, which one of these two methods of evolution have been better in this context? So to answer this question, we measured 2 different parameters. The first one was performance. The brain evolution reached the end of the scenario in less than 80 iterations in the limit time, since while the body and the brain evolution took almost 200 iterations. The other measure we did was the time, the computational time that took both algorithms. The brain evolution simulation took less than half an hour, while the brain and body evolution took almost 5 hours. That is quite a big number. So in this scenario, the brain looks like the big winner. But is this always true? Is this always true? Is always brain evolution better than brain and body evolution? To answer this, what we did was to extract all the conclusions we made from both simulations and do some compare the brain evolution, the brain and body evolution with the brain evolution, giving some disadvantages and some advantages. So what first, these disadvantages we saw in brain and body evolution versus brain evolution was that the real implementation of results can be very tricky. This means that the robot we got from the last generation of the brain and body simulation was a quite complex structure and can be harder to implement it in a real environment than the brain evolution. That was quite simple. Perform this kind of evolution in real environments is a big challenge. It's a big challenge because in every iteration you have to change not only the control, but also you have to change the physical body of the robot. That can be a very big challenge. And at least, the last thing is in a simulation, the brain and body evolution has a very high computational cost compared with brain evolution. But also we see some advantages from brain and body evolution. That are the next one. The brain and body evolution, there is no depend so much in initial optimal structure. This we can see if we compare the two default structures that was used to both methods. In the brain-only evolution, we see that there is this structure is already a quite optimal one for a scenario with free obstacles and for a racing competition. So the person who designed this needed to somehow know how the environment will be and have some background to this kind of racing robots or dynamics. Can be very basic. These are very basic concepts, but you need it. But on the other hand, this structure is just a random structure of elements and motors that anybody can do, and there is no depends in the scenario science. This is obviously not a optimal structure for a free obstacle scenario and almost for no scenario. So another advantage we see was that with a brain and body evolution there is no limits to reach the optimal solution. This means that as we can change not only the control but also the body and the control, also the body, so we can change the body and the control, we lead to the method, to the algorithm, less limits to evolve to the more optimal solution. And this can see if we see the last robot we got from the brain and body simulation. That was this one. This is interesting because these two wheels almost have a similar behavior as this robot. It means that this solution was pretty similar to this solution, this initial solution we got hit. But also the algorithm decides to add a robot arm just to grab the ground and push the robot. So this is an adding that maybe the person who designed this robot didn't think about, and maybe could improve the behavior of the robot. So just to finish, we want to talk about the future applications of maybe future applications of brain and body evolution. The first one is to explore new possibilities in applications we already have solutions. This can be seen, for example, in the last example of the racing robot. We already had a solution for this scenario. That was the robot we used for the brain evolution. But also, with the brain and body evolution, we reached another solution that was just to add an arm to the robot, grab the ground to push faster the robot. So that's a good way to find different and new solutions. Also, it can be used to generate new solutions in environments that we don't have much experience with them, but we can simulate them or just do, maybe in the future, do a evolution of brain and body in this scenario. And this can give us this kind of evolution can give us new solutions to new robots, since it doesn't need, as we say, that we have to know the environment as much to already design a body to the robot. So this can be a good application for this method algorithms, so it can give us a complete solutions. Also, it can be used to optimize decisions. This is, for example, the case where when we have a robot and we want to add a sensor to it, and we have a large set of sensors, but we don't know which one to use, which one is better. So maybe what we can do is just to run a brain and body evolution, letting the evolution algorithm to choose between all the set of sensors that we have and let the evolutionary algorithm decide the optimal one for us. As to finish, also there is other areas of study that can be used. Our Japanese mate told us about Toyota is already working with a method that consists in minimize the three M's that are in Japanese: overburden, cost, and overburden, waste, and stability. So that looks like pretty similar to a cost function. So maybe evolutionary algorithms, like for brain and body evolution, can be very useful in situation, or maybe biological studies or things like that, So to finish, we think that there are plenty range of possibility of application that we can use the brain and body evolution. And that was our presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you for a very nice presentation. I think it's a very interesting project you made. So we'll open up for questions and comments from the panel. Anyone, just open your microphone if you have a comment or question. Yeah, Tapio.
Yeah. Yes, I have a half comment, half question about RoboGen. Basically, both groups, A and B, used RoboGen, and I noticed that neither group had changed the scale of the body or the body parts of the robots. So is it possible to change the scale, the length of the sticks and everything?
Sure. Yes. If the software let you even change the different parts or the scale, it almost let you change anything, but it's a quite complex way to change it. It's not maybe so you change the robot with some. You have to change the code, the code of the software to change that thing. So we didn't enter in that such deep.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking about, for example, the previous group had obstacles, and basically if the wheels would have been bigger, for example, the robots could have gone over the obstacles, or the wigs basically could have climbed over the obstacles, and bigger wheels would have given more speed for the robots. So basically, you got like really complex robots instead of simple and fast robots, for example. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Well, can I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I am one of the TA, and what I like of this group is, well, first of all, they started with Ludobot, and then they rebooted with RoboGang quite late. But I like it most because they were starting to ask questions. Yeah, so they have been looking to the evolutionary history of the robot. They noticed, for example, this WAG, and they asked themselves, okay, is it a byproduct? Is it useful or not? And they investigated that with a benchmark. Yeah, that's very good, I think. And actually, it is interesting because this WAG was there because it was giving probably stability to the robot, but in later generation it became something else. I think this is something nice, given the short time they had to work with RoboGang. I think it's a good way to do things, investigate things. They observed and they came up with an hypothesis and they tried to test it. Okay.
I also really liked the last part where you talked about actual applications. So it's nice to connect it up to what you think might be possible applications in the future. So thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay, then I think we're good because we're now 5 minutes before the next group. So thank you very much. Let's give the group another set of applause.